Have you ever tried to figure out what's happening in Syria? And while trying to do so, have you failed? Well, I don't blame you because the situation is very complex. It's very hard to understand what's happening because it's not clear. And I think it's intentionally that it's this way because right now there is a really heavy battle behind the scenes that we don't see, but those that know just know. And I'm gonna break it down and I'm gonna really give you a clear picture of what's happening today. This will help you understand. And yeah, before getting there, I want us to speak about the history of Syria. And I think this will, no, I don't think this will, I know that this will just 100%ly give you the clear picture and clear understanding of what's happening today. So while doing so, let's have a walk. So, well, before 1900, in the Middle East, there was no country called Syria. There was no Lebanon. But having said that, that doesn't mean that there was no civilization over there. So quite on contrary, like there was a rich civilization. There, instead of like they were not called countries. Like nobody back then had a Syrian passport or a Syrian government as you know it today. But there was Aleppo, there was Damascus. These are like provinces and regions that existed for thousands of years. And it was until the early 1500s, 1516 specifically, when the Ottoman Sultan Selim conquered Aleppo and Damascus. From whom? From the Mamluks. The Mamluks were an empire that were taking, they were ruling those lands, and Sultan Selim won the battle, and he took the title Caliph, which is basically the representative of the Muslim world. Just you can compare it with the Pope. Has the same function, and ever since it was with the Ottoman Empire, and the last caliph was in 1923. That's when it was abolished. So yeah, in 1516, it was conquered by the Ottoman Empire, and these regions and provinces were part of the Ottoman Empire. And for over 400 years, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, and they flourished. There was a golden age, and there was a lot of science that came from these regions. And what happened then? So, but for those that don't know, the Ottoman Empire is what the Turkish Republic is today now. So, the capital city of the Ottoman Empire was in Bursa first, and then it moved to Istanbul. And after the Turkish Republic was found, the capital city is Ankara. So what happened then? How was the Syrian government found? So it has to do with the First World War, right? So, and before getting there, towards the end of the Ottoman Empire, there was a lot going on. So for example, like while most people think that the Middle East is like a deserted place where people ride on camels and live in tents, no, on contrary, there was a railway, the Hijaz Railway, that went from Istanbul, Eastern Europe, all the way to through Damascus, all the way down to pass by, Jerusalem, and also Medina and Mecca. Yeah, that's reality. And I think this is a really important detail to mention now, because the next steps will actually connect to this one. So the Ottomans had a really good relationship with the Germans and with the German Empire, and they worked together. And because of the Germans, just like the Second World War, the First World War happened. And since the Ottomans and the Germans were allies, well, the Ottomans were dragged into this war too. So, what happened then? Like, this is really like, this is going to be an episode by itself, but I'm gonna skip through it because today it's all about Syria explained. So, after the First World War, the Ottoman Empire was chopped into pieces, literally. And interestingly enough, the places that had oil were not given to the Turkish Republic. So wherever there are oil resources, that's where the border of the Turkish Republic ends, and that's where, for example, Syria starts or Iraq starts. So in 1918, that's when the first Syrian government was found. Well, and soon after, it was destroyed by the French and the Brits. How and why? So, I'm sure you heard of the movie Lawrence of Arabia. It's being celebrated. Like for the Brits, he's a hero. Well, he was an agent, a spy. So he went to the Ottoman Empire, to Ottoman lands, and he talked to the ethnic people and taught them nationalism. Like, hey, you should have your own country and your own flag. You should rule over yourself. You should not let others rule over you. And come fight with us. We will give you the weapons. And we need to fight against the Ottomans. And this way, you will gain your independence. Sounds familiar, right? So, and then some, but not all, some Arab tribes joined them, but many didn't join. I want to emphasize that. Like, there is this notion of Turks saying like, oh, the Arabs betrayed us. It's wrong. They didn't, because there were definitely tribes that were not fighting on their sides. So, but the ones that did, well, they were betrayed too. So that's the main example here is the first Syrian government. The French and the Brits crushed them. Of course, they had to give them the favor because they fought with them. They gave them promises. And soon after, they crushed them. And then the French had a mandate, and they created an economy and a system, a structure of Syria that benefited whom? It benefited the French. So while they had an economy, the economy was only benefiting the French. And it was only after the Second World War when the Syrian gained independence. And then we're moving closer to what's happening today. And Bashar al-Assad's family took over, and they were reigning over Syria until recently. And excuse me. And there are two sides of the story. So the Sunnis claimed that they were oppressed by Bashar al-Assad, and he wasn't a Sunni, and he was an Alawi, and there is an Alawi minority in Syria, and there is also a Druze minority, and there are also Kurds ethnically. They are not Arabs, they are Kurds. And so I want to come back and talk again about the Ottomans. The Ottomans were reigning over the whole region. So obviously, there are many, many ethnics. Like you can be, for example, Jewish Ottoman, Armenian Ottoman, Kurdish Ottoman, Arab Ottoman, and just like African American, Spanish American, it was the same exact thing. And in an interview, you can even hear like Tom Barak, he's the new American ambassador for the region. He's based in Istanbul. In a recent interview, he said in English, hey, my great-grandfather was Ottoman citizen when he arrived in the US.
Since my roots actually came from the old Ottoman Empire, as we've talked about. So my grandfather on my father's side came to America in about 1900 with an Ottoman passport and 13 Turkish lira in his pocket. This was it.
This gives you a clear picture. So in the region, people had passports. They had an identity. And yeah, and this is what explains many things, I would say. So in the beginning, everybody was cool with Bashar al-Assad's family, with the Syrian government. They were all cool with them. But what happened then is they slipped more towards Russia and Iran and China. And in geopolitics, one thing you need to understand, there are two sides in the world. Either you're with the West or you're with the East. And only some countries, they manage to balance both of them in a really good way. But most countries can't. They have to really stick to one side. So either you are with Team A or Team B. And Bashar al-Assad, he slipped totally towards Russia. And in 2011, that's when there was a meeting that took place between several countries, and the US voted, no, we want Bashar al-Assad out. We don't want to deal with this guy anymore. And many countries in the region didn't know like how to react. It was a really tough decision. I mean, because suddenly they all had to go against them. But it happened. The civil war happened, and this was clearly an operation, and Russia didn't let down Bashar al-Assad because it's now basically he was or is like their Zelensky. That's how you can compare. And what's the result? Many refugees, many people left Syria, and the Turkish Republic took most of the Syrian refugees, about 5 million. And why, please remember this information, because now when I'm trying to really give you the overview, in the end, you will then realize the connection Türkiye has with Syria. And now, ever since 2011, the Battle of Proxies started. So there are groups within Syria that have been supported by other countries. This is proxy war, meaning I want to fight you. I don't fight you directly. I'm just going to give this guy money, and I will give him everything he needs, all the tools to fight you. But you know that behind this guy is me. I'm the actual enemy. That's what proxy war is. So what did they create? They created Kurdish fighters, YPG, which is clearly part of the PKK, considered a terrorist organization by the world, right? And then you have ISIS, then you have Al-Qaeda, and then you have many different groups. They all fought each other. There was so much bloodshed, and it kept going on. And to a point that Bashar al-Assad, he thought he made it. Well, he was welcomed back to the Arab League, and it was shocking. And I remember the German foreign minister, Baerbock, she said, "We don't want to see him back in the Arab League. Like, don't you dare to let him back in." Well, the Arab countries were like, well, I mean, the West had like 10 years to get rid of him, and they were not able to get rid of him. So they welcomed him back in the Arab League, and everything seemed to be normal. But then the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, excuse me, he invited him. He wanted to meet him. Bashar al-Assad refused. He said, "I don't want to meet you." And within a few days, suddenly, his government was overthrown. And he fled the country, and he fled to Russia to save his life. Otherwise, he would have definitely ended up dead, 100%. So, and the government was, overthrown, and Ahmed al-Shar, who doesn't have the best CV at all, took over. Now, what's the situation now? Now we will dig into the Pandora's box. We will talk about what's happening in Syria today. So, this is a neighboring country. This, like Syria, is important for the region. Just imagine, I'm in Europe, and I have a neighboring country like Switzerland, for example. Germany, France, and Italy, they're all surrounding Switzerland. So of course they want to have a say. Of course they want to have their, how can you say it? Like, of course they want to have someone there in power that benefits them, right? It's in their interest, right? So, because you want to make sure you have a neighbor that is under your control. So, and that's exactly the case with Syria. So, the Turks have a historical right, and also not only historical. I mean, imagine you take in 5 million Syrian refugees in your country. You know how much of a burden that is? Like, I want to really take time to explain this to you. Imagine you have a company with 200 employees, and each of them gets a salary. Imagine suddenly you are told to hire 2,000 employees, right? So how are you going to manage that? So, and adding 5 million to a country means, like, there are aspects that most of you don't even realize, like healthcare, right? So there are hospitals, there are schools, there are apartments, like living, and many things of the infrastructure are being suddenly you have to serve 5 million more people than you already do, and it's not easy. So, and they have done that, and I have to also mention that the European Union has also supported and has been paying the Turkish government, because Europe has immigration problems. Like, they can't just take in more, they select and they take certain ones, of course, but they just, like the people in Europe, they don't want immigrants anymore. That's just a reality. And that's why the European Union gave money to the Turkish government. Here is, like, this money is designed to help the Turks to manage the immigrants in their country. So, and that's why I believe, like, it's logically, I mean, they have a say, they should have a say. And that's why after the after the government fell, the head of Turkish intelligence was in Damascus next day. And that's symbolic. That means they are behind what happens, clearly. So, and who else is supporting that? Qatar is supporting that. And now Saudi Arabia is clearly also supporting that. They actually paid off all the money that the prior Syrian government owed to the international bank. The Saudis paid it off because it's in their interest, because they want to have a stable Syria with a large economy. So they want to rebuild Syria. But who doesn't want to have a stable Syria? Well, it's the neighbor south, talking about Israel. So they have been turning the Kurds against the Turkish government and against now the Syrian government. And they have been trained by them. Like, I was in Florida, and this is a personal story. I was in Florida and I met a Kurdish woman, and she told me that her father is receiving military training in Israel. Let that sink in. This is something that we know, maybe not the majority, but it's something that is known. But it's of course different when you really hear it from someone directly. And this is really the case. The Kurdish fighters, they get military training from Israel, and when they are harmed in battle, they are flown in. Of course, not all, but only the important soldiers, they get flown in to Israel, and they get treated there in hospitals. So there is also a reason. I mean, when you saw Netanyahu's son, Yair Netanyahu, he posted on his Instagram, "Free Kurdistan." What does that mean? So I will tell you what it means. Their goal is to divide more and conquer more with the help of tools, proxies. So they want to make sure that the Kurds of northern Syria and northern Iraq and East Iran and West Iran, excuse me, and East Türkiye, the Kurds there, they want them to create their own country and name it Kurdistan. Why? Do you think the Israelis really love Kurds? Or do you think the Europeans love Kurds? Do you think it's because of love? Really? I don't think so. Definitely not. So if that's the case, then why don't we go to Spain and allow the Catalanians to have their own country? Because they're not Spaniards, and they also, like, democratically, they should have the right to decide that for their own. They even tried, but guess what? The leaders of those parties, they ended up in jail. So it's interesting. Like, on one hand, people are promoting Kurdish states here, but here within Europe, they wouldn't want an independent Catalonia or Catalonia. It's a bit hypocritical. So there is a reason, of course. I mean, it's divide and conquer. So south of Syria, they want to give it up to the Druze community. Not because they like the Druze, but it serves the interest. So Syria is right now in this situation. So that's Syria explained. Right now, there is this battle going on that Syria might be chopped into three pieces. The northern part could be part of what, like, they don't call it officially that, but northern Iraq has become, it's being called as a region, North Kurdistan. And the north of Syria should merge into that, be like, it should become a puzzle piece, connects to that. And then the south is with the Druze community will be part of Israel. And the Qataris and the Turks and the Saudis, of course, want the opposite. They want a united Syria, and they wanted to have a prosperous economy, and that's basically the ultimate goal. And how this will evolve will be seen, I would say, in the next 2 years. I think not longer than that. In the next 2 years, we will really see what's going on over there. All right, then that's for today. And if you have any questions or if you have any remarks, please leave a comment. Thank you.